Halinka Previtt is a professional coach, author, and the creator of The Happy and Healthy Place. As a professional coach, Halinka helps her professionals skyrocket their life purpose and passion their health, relationships, and career. Halinka is a certified yoga teacher, and her classes focus on making yoga accessible to everybody.
So movement is so important, and the reality is that we've discovered that sitting is the new smoking. So the Mayo Clinic has actually done research and has shown that for sitting for more than 8 hours or more a day, it actually has the same physical effects on our body as smoking or being obese, and has the same rate of actual death, which is really, really sad, because think about it, how easy it is to sit for more than 8 hours a day. Most of us sit at a computer and actually work 8 hours a day, so that's actually taking care of it right there. But then we have our driving and our commute, we have TV, we have sitting down for supper, right? Like, it's actually super easy to be able to get more than those 8 hours. We also think that in order to counteract that sitting for 8 hours a day, that we need to actually completely change our lives and do this incredibly intense exercise, and that's actually not the case. Same studies have actually shown that doing any sort of movement for 30 to 40 minutes that's moderately intense each day can actually counteract the effects of sitting for 8 or more hours a day actually has on your body. Yeah, movement's so important. And let's actually reframe exercise, because we do have this limiting belief that exercise has to be done intensely, has to be done at a gym, right? Needs to look a certain way. And because we know that really it's 30 to 40 minutes of moderately intense exercise that's actually going to really give you the best health benefits, I like to actually teach my clients to reframe what exercise is. So instead of actually calling it exercise, we actually called it intentional movement, right? So as we're doing this intentional movement, we get to actually pick something that you really enjoy. Because the reality is that consistency is more important than the actual exercise. Okay, so if you hate running, but there's someone that tells you running is the only way to get the exercise, is the only way to get the health benefits, is the only way to lose the weight, it's the only way to help with the mental clarity, you're not going to last a week because you really dislike running. Not only are you not going to last a week, but if you do actually do it, chances are you're going to be injured if you go further than the 1 or 2 runs at the beginning before you actually start to quit. When each time we start something and quit, we reestablish the same pattern in this belief system that I'm no good at exercise, I can't do it, I don't have time for it, it's no fun, it always hurts. And so having that reframe of doing some intentional movement and movement that you really enjoy is going to be the best thing to actually help you from a health standpoint so that you're able to do consistent. So you like being outside, but you hate running, go for a walk. Right? You love riding your bike, awesome. You know what I mean? Invest in sort of a bike. If you actually really enjoy going to the gym and lifting weights, fantastic. Maybe dancing is actually your thing, right? So be able to join a dance class and do that. So whatever you actually enjoy and the movement that's going to be consistent is going to be your best form of exercise. For me, that's always been yoga. I've done a whole slew of different trainings, from old triathlons to running to even sort of some fitness sort of bodybuilding style training. But the thing that I always come back to, no matter what's going on in my life or how I'm feeling or what injuries I have been dealt with, has always been coming back to yoga, because yoga has been really the only thing that really, not only do I feel good after I do it, but I really feel good while I do it. And as you're picking your intentional movement, choose something that you enjoy, but choose something that actually feels really good as you're doing it. What we've actually discovered is that we want to do things that actually are fun and that bring joy and bring laughter and are actually sort of like fun and exciting to be able to do it. So the things that we actually are having now that we're seeing, puppy yoga and goat yoga and beer yoga, what they're there and why they're actually working and why people have such a draw to them, is it brings that fun element back to it. We know that when we're having fun or when we're laughing, we actually increase our endorphins. So we're already getting that endorphin rush before we even do the movement, which again elevates that endorphin rush. So as we have that elevated endorphins from the movement, as well as having that fun, what we're actually doing is allowing ourselves to sort of deal with, to clear that mental clutter, that overwhelm that we're feeling. So they're fun to be able to do. The one thing I caution people is don't rely on them. Right? Because when you're picking that intentional movement so that you're able to do on a regular basis, you want to pick something that's accessible to you, that you're able to engage with on a daily basis, or at least sort of a couple of times a week. And the reality is those events aren't available for you to do all the time. So use them as a supplement, use them to kind of enhance your experience, use them as a way to be able to bring friends and families and to be able to do something together and to sort of share that joy with them. Enjoy them while you're doing them, but don't rely on them for your intentional movement practice. The challenge actually becomes that when we're actually feeling stressed or overwhelmed, we don't want to do anything. And there becomes this pattern that I'm stressed and overwhelmed, so I don't want to do anything, which actually leads me to be more stressed and overwhelmed. Because as we talked in our previous episodes, is that physical and mental stress starts to affect our physical bodies. And so there becomes this idea where I'm too tired to actually do any movement, I'm too sore, I'm in pain, right? And all those things can actually be very legitimate. They can be very, very real. And that's why at the beginning, I want to really sort of reframe that it doesn't have to be exercise, right? It has to be intentional movement, because there's going to be different activities and different movements that you actually choose to do at that time, depending on where you are in life, what your stress patterns actually look like, what your level of overwhelm actually is. We know that exercise is really good for us, where it actually gives all these health benefits and counteracts the idea of sitting for a long period of time. But if you're in a heightened state of stress and overwhelm, doing intense exercise is actually not good for you to do at that moment. Okay, so there's two real things that I want you to be aware of why you should choose to do intentional movement, even when you're feeling too overwhelmed or too stressed to add that movement to your day. The very first one is that physical exercise and that movement is going to be one of the ways to actually declutter that monkey brain. Okay, just like taking pen to paper and journaling is, as we move our bodies and as we actually unravel that physical tension that our body is feeling because of that monkey brain, because of that overwhelm, allowing yourself to go through that intentional movement is going to allow you to declutter your brain, is going to help you to engage into your thought pattern, is going to allow you to really assess and become aware of the patterns that you're actually having. So although you're tired and sore, doing that little bit of intentional movement is going to help you actually with the feelings of overwhelmed, so you can tackle the reason why you're overwhelmed in the first place. Okay. The second thing is that there's a cycle. The less I do, the less I want to do. The less I move, the less I want to move, right? As we become into this sort of habit of not doing any sort of intentional movement, as we get into the habit of sitting more, we actually have this really hard time breaking that cycle. Okay, so we need to get into the habit of actually adding intentional movement into our day. And that's why choosing something that you actually really enjoy, that's fun, that's engaging, that you want to be able to do, and focusing on the consistency more than this intensity is going to be really important. An example is actually from James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits. He had a client who needed to do some more intentional movement, but needed to get into a new habit of going to the gym. But the idea of going to the gym every day for an hour long was just not possible. He physically couldn't do it. It wasn't a sustainable habit to be able to go. And every time he tried, he just failed. So the very first step was literally to schedule it in, put on your clothes, drive to the gym, walk on the treadmill for 5 minutes, and then leave. And he did that every single day for 1 month before he added on another exercise or before he added anything onto it. Because the very first thing was actually just getting into the habit of going to the gym, making it enjoyable, starting to get to know people. You start to actually build the accountability and the consistency in your life. And he was already starting to see the physical benefits of that 5 minutes of activity without actually doing too much. So whereas there's a cycle of the less I do, the less I want to do, there's also a new cycle is the better I feel, the more I want to move my body. right? And so the very first step of any program, and when you're just starting, especially if you're in that sense of overwhelm, and you're sort of in that sense of overwhelm, which means you're probably in a lot of physical pain, the very first goal should just be feeling good in your body. So if you're just getting started, there's a couple of things to keep in mind, right? The very first thing to keep in mind is that everybody has a starting day, right? Every single person has had day one, ground zero. And it's actually really hard to remember that, because you do a yoga class and you sign up for your very first time and you look around and everyone looks like they're completely advanced. Or you go to the gym for the first time and everybody knows where everything is and they all look like they're, you know what I mean? Like all these basically people who've been there forever and lived there. And we feel like we're the only one who doesn't know what we're doing. So step one when you're first getting started is to remember that every single person has had a starting day. The second thing is, if you're going to something like a group class or going to something like a yoga class, I highly recommend that you actually go and talk to the instructor. Meet the instructor, introduce yourself, tell them this is the first time that you've ever actually done it. They'll be able to give you tips, and they'll also be able to modify everything so that you're doing things that, again, feels good. You have less risk of injury, and if you have less risk of injury and you're actually enjoying it, the more likely you're going to go to the next time. And we know that we need to actually have that consistency. And the benefit of a class is you get to know the instructors, you get to know the people who are there on a consistent basis, and there becomes an accountability of being there, right? Because if you haven't been there for a while, then when they see you, they're going to say, like, we've missed you, where have you been, right? And you start to actually develop that accountability and that consistency, because it actually becomes enjoyable.
That's for sure.
So your intentional movement is going to be one of your key things in order to be able to help overcoming overwhelm, okay? So remember that you want to do something that you really, really enjoy, because the more you actually enjoy it, the more you actually feel good, and feeling good is going to be your very first goal, okay? The more likely you're going to stay with it and be consistent. Now, if you're kind of not quite sure of where to start from, I want to ask you yourself this question. What activities did you enjoy as a kid? And bringing that same level of fun and joy and play to your intentional movement at whatever age that you're going to do, you're going to be more successful with it in the long run. So thanks for tuning in, for watching this episode. More episodes are actually coming, and you can join us for next week. And if you want some more information, please join me at thehappyandhealthyplace.com.